Hello, Hero Collectors here. How's it going, everybody? Hope y'all are doing fantastic. I know I am, because today we're going to be doing a quick fire review on these three figures from the Ahsoka show. We have Baylan Skoll, Ahsoka the White, or her Peridia, I believe it was, that outfit, and Shin Hati. The Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati are the exclusives with the cloaks. So without further ado, let's get into the review. All right, getting into these figures, let's start off with the Ahsoka figure. Now, now having some Ahsoka figures in hand, this one, I think, in terms of likeness, is the absolute best. It really captures Rosario Dawson's likeness better than the Mando Ahsoka, and I never had some of the other Ahsoka figures that came after the initial Mando Ahsoka, but I know from seeing them like in stores that it does actually match a bit better. So I really like the face sculpt, and they captured this costume very well. I do wish she came with a cloak, but I know Black Series will just do an exclusive or a 2-pack and give her the cloak then. I will be fine without it if that's the case. Maybe I'll go find a custom one or something, but I'm happy with how this costume looks despite not getting the cloak in this release. The paint is really good. I don't really think I've seen any blemishes or anything, any problems. Okay, maybe one dot on the Leku, but even then, it's not even on the front of the figure, it's on the back. I wouldn't even notice. Everything looks really clean, got some shiny bits, some matte bits. It all works really well for this costume. And I really do appreciate how they sculpted the thighs, that even though she doesn't have a thigh swivel, the way the ball joints connect to the thighs themselves, it gives a little bit more range to the legs without needing that thigh cut, even though I would have really liked to have seen that thigh cut. And the way the costume's designed is they didn't have to do the funky baggy pants that they did for the previous Ahsoka figures from the Mando show. So I do appreciate that, and it still gets a decent amount of range at the knee. Now, getting into the bad of this figure, her head tails, I wish were a more pliable material, because trying to get her head in any kind of turned position or looking down a serious amount, they just want to fight me. And if it's, even if I tuck one over the side, it's the back one fighting me. If it's, you know, it just doesn't look natural when I'm trying to have her head turned with these Leku. So if they were just a more pliable material to where it wouldn't like resist, I would really have appreciated that. And then my final bad point about this figure is the grip hands, or just the way the hands grip the lightsabers. They do it poorly, and it was really frustrating when trying to pose this figure. The saber just kept falling out of her hand, and I would get her in the pose, and then it would just droop, and then just slide out in some poses. It was really, really annoying, and you're going to see that as a theme in another figure in this review. So, um, for Ahsoka, does she have the fun factor? No. The grip hands really ruined my experience with posing her. They just kept dropping the lightsabers, and if you have a character who is holding lightsabers, they need to be able to hold them well, and she just doesn't. So, no fun factor, but I will give her an 8 out of 10 for executing this costume, and the sculpt on the face, and the paint, and the articulation. I'm going to give her an 8 out of 10. Getting into Baylan's skull, this figure is really solid, aside from a few points. uh, I really love the sculpt of all the armor and the robes. It has a nice blend of kind of like a medieval knight. That's just the character design, but the way it's executed here, it just looks like a knight from medieval times, but Jediified. You know how sometimes people do that artwork. I love all the blue kind of highlights on the armor. I don't know really what that was in the show. I don't think it was as vibrant in the show as it is here on the figure, but it still looks really good. I think the actor likeness is really good. Rest in peace. And the cloak is really good. It's this strange material. It's super thin. I don't know how well it's going to hold up over time, but it really lays nice on the figure, and even with the painted like strip on the hood, it still sits nicely against his head and the rest of his body. So I really do like the cloak. I'm just afraid of how it's going to last over time. Now, getting into the bad of the figure, the saber hilt is super rubbery and annoying. It's gonna, I'm gonna bring this up again here in a minute, but it looks wrong. It reminds me of when I would pose up a Maul figure and the saber would just be super bent because of his two-handed pose. It just does not look good and is really annoying. And then I wish the arm articulation was a bit better. Getting some good crossbody would have been great. You know, he does have butterflies, but butterflies don't get the range I want in Star Wars figures, really, so I just would have appreciated more crossbody to hold the sabers better. And then, does he have the fun factor? No. I think that's a common occurrence with Black Series figures, is they're just not going to have the fun factor. While, yes, they are great representations of characters from the universe, they just have such a hard time posing and getting the poses I want, so it's continuing to happen here on Baylan. And in terms of a rating, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. About an average rating for me. That means it's at least a good figure, and I'm very, very sad. Like, I'm satisfied with my purchase, but there is some things that I wish was improved. Now, getting into Shin Hati. Everything I just said about Baylan's cloak is present here on Shin. It's basically the same material, but in brown and without the little painted strip at the hood. My other compliments to the figure, the sculpt is really nice. All the armor bits with her cloak, again, go together. She's less of a knight than Baylan was, but it does look very good coming together on this figure. Especially, I like the head sculpt. I think it captures the actress's likeness really well. And I even like the little gauntlets on her arms. They have a lot of weathering, and it looks just really nice. It does kind of, when you get to the torso, it does kind of look a little plain. I wish that had some paint detail. I was able to get her to pose pretty well. The articulation's decent. I didn't have as many problems, but there are some problems. So with that, let's get into what is bad about this figure. First up, the hands. They're sculpted so weirdly to where she can't grip her saber very well, and it falls out constantly, just like Ahsoka. What the heck is happening, Black Series? Fix your hands on your female saber wielders. This needs to stop. Then the ankles, they're kind of loose, and like once you have it in the ratchet, it doesn't want to like just stay in that position. It wants to, like, if you're standing neutral, it wants to go up, and she just kind of loses her balance. So that's really annoying. And then the saber hilt, again, going back to Baylan, it's super rubbery and just kind of bends, if you can even get her to grip it. And then the most common complaint with this and Baylan Skoll is the out of scale nature of the figures. In my opinion, I think it's the Shin figure. I think she is just scaled a little too big and needed to be smaller. And I'm not really sure if I'm going to be doing the thigh swap that everybody does, or if I'm just going to put Baylan on a little raised platform when I do pose him on the shelf. I haven't decided yet. So, with all that said, does Shin have the fun factor? No. This is probably the one I had the worst experience with in terms of posing. Even though I was able to get some good poses, I just did not have a good time. It was really frustrating. And with all of that kind of brought together, I'm going to give her a 6 out of 10. Those problems really brought my experience down with this figure. I do wish a lot was fixed. Like, I'm glad to have the character representation, but this needed another pass before they released it, in all honesty, and especially re-released it because this is a re-release with a new cloak. So they had time to fix things, but they just didn't. So yeah, with all of that, if you enjoyed this review, make sure you leave a like. Also, leave some comments down below. What do you think of these figures? Did you pick any of them up? Let me know all the things there, and make sure you're subscribed, and I will talk to you all in another video, another post, another time.